Welcome into the latest edition of the Pump Fake. Jarrett Bailey with you as always. Joined today, ESPN Houston Texans reporter DJ Bien-Aime. It's good to see you, my friend. How are you?
Doing good. I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, man. Not quite as good as a certain quarterback in your neck of the woods, though. Which we'll kick off the show talking about right now. CJ Stroud, man, having one of the best rookie seasons for a quarterback, maybe the best rookie season for a quarterback that we've seen in the history of football. Coming into today, tied for sixth in the NFL in touchdown passes, second in passing yards, sixth in the league in EPA, third in defense adjusted yards above replacement, third in DVOA. Everything that this man is doing, I think the majority of people coming into the year, if you would have said, all right, the Texans, if they win 6-7 games, CJ Stroud looks competent and like he has a future in the league, that's a hell of a start.
Yeah,
They have more than surpassed those expectations and find themselves in the midst of a playoff race. What's been the key to his success and Houston's success overall?
I think, in all honesty, if I had to pick one specific reason, I think it would be the offensive line that he has. I know that it may appear that the offensive line wasn't that good on Sunday against the Jaguars, but CJ actually had an average time to throw of 3.8. So if you have an average time to throw of 3.8, the quarterback's gonna be under some type of pressure, whether you're creating or not. That's just kind of how the cookie crumbles in the NFL. Like as we know, a lot of quarterbacks they get the ball out within, really good quarterbacks is like 2.5 to like 2.8. Well, 2.4 to like 2.8. I think Trevor's in like 2.4 range, Tua's in 2.5 range, Mahomes in 2.8 range, Burrow was in 2.4, guys like that. And obviously, like the guys that are a little bit higher, like they're like pure scramblers. But CJ, for the most part, he just kind of operates in the pocket for the most part. I mean, he'll create and he can create, but for the most part, he's having because again, he's has the highest time to throw in the NFL, but he's only pressured on like he's like his actual pressured rate is like mid tier, like in the, like 15, 16, one of the two,
Sure.
which means that he's for the most part having clean pockets and the offensive line, according to ESPN, pass block win rate is top 10. They're 10th right now. So he's had really good protection that's allowed him to survey the field. There's times where he'll go 1, 2, 3, and he'll make a full field read and get to that third guy and fire a dart. And there's some guys that if they go 1, 2, and then they try to get 3, they might have a defender in their mouth. So I would say like the O line is probably one of the bigger reasons they don't get as much praise or talk. They're not talked about as much. But I would say that the O line, especially their O line coach, has done a really good job of giving Cia these clean pockets. Because we all knew coming out if he has clean pockets, he's gonna dice you up, right? Like that's kind of who he is. Um, so I would say the main reason, in my opinion, is the offensive line. I would say second is Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator, who's done a really, really good job of creating favorable matchups, really exploiting defense's tendencies, calling plays at the right time, and he's been able to execute. And obviously third would be his receivers and Tank Dell and Nico Collins. They've really surprised a lot of folks. I mean, D'Amico, the Texas head coach, did mention prior to the season that this receiving core was going to surprise some people, and they sure have. Again, like Tank looks like an absolute steal in the third round. Now you kind of question why he go first round.
Right.
Nico is living up to a lot of the talent that he always had coming out of Michigan. He just couldn't stay healthy. He's at 800 yards receiving, 13th in the NFL, 13th most in the NFL, fifth behind AFC receivers, which means he might have a shot to possibly make a Pro Bowl this year. So yeah, I think it was if I had to rank it, it'd be those three: O line, Bobby Slowick, receivers.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Did they just Tyus Howard just went down with an injury?
Yep.
How long is he out? I
Yeah,
didn't
no,
realize.
he's out for the rest of the year. To be
Mm,
honest, nobody really has even a good idea when he'll be back because like it's a kind
right.
of unique injury
Right.
where he's kind of injured. What he injured in his knee. So it's gonna be an interesting process to see how he gets back. So good for him that he's able to get his money. Um, so because the knee injury doesn't seem like it's a usual one. It was a little unusual. So we'll see where he comes back. But they replaced him with the second round pick from this past draft and Juice Scruggs. So
Mhm.
and Juice Scruggs been able to hold it down. Was able to hold it down within the game to an extent. And again, he's going to be playing anybody that plays next to Laramie from a pass blocking standpoint is going to be in a favorable position because we all know if you got a great left tackle, left guard's play is only going to elevate, mainly because he has that guy right next to him and he doesn't necessarily have to worry about being in bad positions because he knows that left tackle is going to hold it down. So I think again, as long as they got Laramie and Shaq Mason played phenomenal ball. Even George Fan, he's like top 10. I actually think like top 10, top 12 amongst amongst tackles and pass block win rate too. So like their O-line, I give a lot of credit to the offensive line coach. Not sure what his name is, forgetting it right now. But again, like he's done a great job preparing these guys. In all honesty, he's done a really good job preparing these guys. Because again, like CJ has the longest time to throw in the entire NFL, and he's not pressured at a abnormal, like at a very, very high rate. Because the guys that are up there, like I think Russell Wilson's up there in terms of time to throw. He's been sacked a lot this year. So CJ has one really, really good pocket presence and has a good offensive line that can hold up and give CJ all the time he needs.
You talked about his receiving core as well. Like Nico Collins came into the season with a career high, I think, of 37 catches, which he sustained last year. He's already surpassed that this season.
Yep.
Tank Dell has been phenomenal in all aspects, whether it be, as an underneath slice and dice guy or as a deep threat, as we've seen this season. The fact that he's doing it with such an unproven core, I think, speaks to the talent of him as well. And that's, not to bash Nico Collins.
Yeah, for sure.
But like I said, I think coming into the year, everybody's like, okay, as long as we see something, that's a good first step. But they've gone above and beyond what those expectations were. Dalton Schultz has also had a nice stretch of games as well this season. Looking at the rest of their schedule, I mean, they got Denver coming up. What is, for you, what's the biggest worry when it comes to playing Denver going into this week?
So I would say it's the turnover battle. Because Denver's done a really good job at that, just forcing turnovers, whether it's forced fumbles, interceptions, whatever it is. Like the majority of the games that they've won that they weren't supposed to win, they was able to force interceptions, or fumbles, whether it was like against the Buffalo Bills. Even though like the Buffalo Bills one was a little wonky, because some of the one interception was off of Gabe Davis's hands.
Right.
You had a fumbled snap. Like it was a very weird ordeal, and like that wasn't sustainable, but. The Chiefs game, they were able to force some legitimate interceptions on Patrick Mahomes by being able to disguise them a little bit. So I would say turnovers is probably one thing that I'm worried a little bit about. Not because CJ doesn't protect the ball there; he has a really good job protecting the ball. But it's just when they force turnovers, they're able to capitalize on it and put you in a hole. So I think that'd probably be my biggest concern. Then my second biggest concern, honestly, as the Broncos would be how do they adapt off of Surtain possibly following whether it's Nico or Tank, right? So like if Surtain is following those guys, is Bobby Slowick? Because it's not like it's like the typical like, all right, man-to-man coverage across the board. All right, my best corners are going to follow your best receiver, but we know it's man across the board. It's more like they at times, especially on third downs, they get a little creative where like Surtain will follow and he'll just be man on that guy. But like on the back end, they'll still be running whether it's quarters or quarter half or cover 2 or cover 3, whatever. They'll still be running their own stuff. Surtain got his own assignment, So I'm really curious to see how Bobby Slowick and CJ attack that type of defense. Because they haven't seen that type of defense all year where their number one guy, like their number one corner is going to possibly follow your number one receiver or your favorite target. So I'm really interested to see how they counter that. I mean, because again, like they had a couple of weeks where teams were picking up on attention that they love to attack over the middle of the field in breaking routes consistently. And there's a 3-week stretch against the Saints, Panthers, and Falcons where teams were able to minimize that. That's why they averaged like 17 points during that stretch. They adapted and made their adjustments after that. They still go to it from time to time, but now they're attacking more outside the numbers from time to time at a more consistent rate. So they've been able to adjust. So this will be a little different, right? Can they adjust in the game and try to figure out how to attack it? So I'm really interested to see how like they attack the Surtain ordeal and how do they protect the football. Because if you turn the ball over against Denver, they'll be able to capitalize off of it and then put you in a bind. And then they're going to run the ball. And they're going to shorten the game, as we know we saw in the Bills game. Like, they shortened that game dramatically to where, the Bills didn't really have the ball much and weren't able to pull out, even though in reality, like, if they had 11 guys on the field, they win that game.
Sure. We haven't really touched much on the Texans defense, but being the fact that Russ has done a better job of protecting the ball this year, and you mentioned it, the way that the Broncos play, the analogy I made a lot this season is like Russ is cooking, but he's not like cooking like a 5-star chef. He's cooking more like he just got like a blue apron package, and he's got the recipe in front of him. Sean Payton's not asking him to do a whole lot. It's more just like, Russ, you don't have to, throw 90 yards downfield. But hey, if it's like a 3rd and 5, we need you to hit on this throw. If it's a 3rd and 6, we need you to move the chains. In terms of that, I mean, Houston's defense has been a little bit up and down this season. In terms of the offense versus defense battle for the Broncos offense and Houston's defense, what stands out to you?
What would stand out to me is how are they going to operate? Like, can they, force the Broncos behind the sticks, right? Line up behind the sticks, but, if it's 1st and 2nd down, can they keep them out of favorable 3rd down situations? Can they keep them out of 3rd and 4s, 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 3s? Because Rush has been very effective in those situations, right? And again, if they're running the ball at an effective rate, now their play action pass game is a lot more effective, right? They're going to be able, Sean Payton's going to do a really good job of putting some of the linebackers in run pass conflict, right? With some of the jet motion, some of the jet motion, things of that nature, some of the most dangerous man movement at the line of scrimmage, things of that nature, just to continue, just to mess with their eyes just for a second so they can find a way to slither through. And then again, you can do a lot of play action creativity stuff off of that. So I'm really curious to see how the Texans are able to operate on early downs, 1st and 2nd downs, to try to prevent them from being in those favorable 3rd down situations. Because obviously, if you get Russ in 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9s, we all know Russ isn't necessarily an on-time type of player. He has to be a little bit off script. The Texans this year have done really well with quarterbacks to try to play off of script. They held Kyler Murray in check for the most part, post interception. Lamar, they really held him in check that game. I think Lamar had a pick and a lost fumble that game, and both of those came off of broken plays. So they've done a really good job in that regard. The one quarterback that was able to really get them a lot on broken plays was Joe Burrow. He's able to really like torch them at times on script, but they'll live with teams kind of playing off script. So I would say if you can get them in 3rd and long, like 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 10, we know Russ necessarily isn't gonna 1, 2, 3 throw right there. Sometimes he might not like what he sees, and he's gonna try to scramble and make something happen. And the Texans have been pretty effective in that manner. So I would say for me is how do they handle 1st and 2nd down, trying to prevent the 3rd and manageable, 3rd and shorts. Because at that point it's kind of a coin flip for the Denver Broncos offense and the Texans defense. I'm really curious to see what defense we're going to see from them because, again, like as you mentioned, they've been up and down, right? Some weeks they look really good, like against the Saints or against the Panthers or against against the Bengals for a large majority of the game, but then at the end, like they kind of let up a little bit, let go of the reins, and now before you know it, the Bengals have a chance to win that game and put up 30, if not for a drop touchdown by Tyler Boyd. Right. Now, it's a completely different result in that regard. So I'm really interested to see which defense we get. This is going to be the first game since week 1 where they have their entire secondary that's healthy. Yeah, week 1 was the only game, and that only lasted a quarter because Jalen Petrie punctured his lung early in the 2nd quarter. And from that point on, it had been actually I lied. I don't even think they were healthy week 1 because I don't even think Jimmy Ward played that game. So I
lied. A constant rotating door.
Yeah, it's been a constant rotating door. Jalen will be in, Jimmy's out, or Jimmy's in, Jalen's out, or Steve in with Stingley, but then Stingley gets hurt now with Shaq and blah, 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 right? Like it's at one point, the only guy that was healthy, I believe at one point was just Steve. Steve Nelson's the only guy that's played every single game this year. Steve Nelson's the only guy that's played every single game at the even the slot corner, he broke his hand. You know what I'm saying? Like they've had all kinds of injuries in the secondary, but this is, I think, the first time all year that they've been fully healthy. So I'm really curious to see what that looks like.
Steven Nelson, friend of this very program, is. So looking ahead, past Denver, the remaining quarterbacks that the Texans have to play: Tim Boyle, Will Levis, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Will Levis again, Gardner Minshew.
Yep.
I mean, that's a hell of a favorable stretch that they have
It
to
is.
finish off the year, and it feels like it would take something crazy to see the Texans not make the playoffs.
Um, Crazy. If they lose this week, it gets a little tricky because they'll be six and
Sure.
six. They'll
Yeah.
fall even further back in the AFC. In terms of the tiebreaker, and they kind of X's out your advantage over the Steelers if you were to have a similar record because the Steelers are probably gonna win like 10 games or whatnot or a little bit
Yeah.
over that. And that head-to-head tiebreaker might not be a factor if the Broncos and them have the same record. But I would say it probably would take something crazy to the point. I think it would probably take something a little crazy as long as they win this weekend. If they lose this weekend, it can get a little tricky. But even then, like they can still finish 10-7, even if they lose this weekend, because they, as you named those quarterbacks, right? Like those quarterbacks are not good.
No, they are not.
The only game that get a little tricky for me is the Titans and the Colts games because they're divisional games, and we know divisional. Like you could throw the records out the window, right? Like the Ravens are looking at one of the best teams in the league, and they lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? So it's always interesting to see when it comes to divisional game. Even the Bills, they lost to the Patriots, and we know the Bills are way better than the Patriots, right? So that's what I would say. They have to kind of win this week because like I can't expect them to sweep through the rest of the divisional opponents. Right? Like that's just not even realistic. Not saying they don't got the talent, but division games are just weird, right? Like they went to Jacksonville and they kicked their teeth in, right? But like Jacksonville came back to them and they handled business. And this version of the Texans was a better version of the version that went down in Jacksonville, So so that's why this game is kind of must win. So that gives you a little more wiggle room, right? You go from 6-5 to 7-5. That gives you like a 2-game lose grace period, right? You just got to kind of finish 3 and I think you're going to finish 3-2, and then basically in the playoffs. So
on the rest of the AFC South, though, Jacksonville seems to be in the driver's seat. I think it would take a lot for the Texans would have to almost run the table, and Jacksonville would have to stumble a little bit for them to lose out on that division. But the Indianapolis Colts, man, top 10 scoring offense right now with Gardner Minshew in the center. I think that says a lot to how like Shane Steichen was clearly the right guy, the right hire. Right. When Anthony Richardson goes down, I think everybody's like, all right, well, this is kind of we'll punt on the season. But no, man, I think they currently hold the 7th seed in the AFC playoff picture.
Yeah, they do.
And in terms of guys that are really, Josh Downs has come alive. Zach Moss came up when Jonathan Taylor was gone. Now Jonathan Taylor's back in the mix. We've seen Michael Pittman have his moments. Like Indianapolis, man, they can't be quite written off yet.
No, they can't.
They're in this.
No, they absolutely are. And you got to also factor in the point that like they beat the Texans pretty convincingly too.
Yeah,
like that week 2 game, they really beat them convincingly. So I'm really, I'm not dismissing them. That's why I said like it'd be really tough to like just predict they're gonna sweep through the rest of the AFC South, man. Because they got to play the Titans twice, and they got to play the Colts, who again, because they've been playing really good football. As you said, they got a top 10 scoring offense with Gardner Minshew at quarterback. Obviously, Michael Pittman has been doing his thing. He's been playing really well in a contract year. They have Zach Moss to replace Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor's out for a couple of weeks with the thumb injury, but when you got both of them now, you have a really dynamic running attack, and their defense is respectable. So I really think, it's going to be – I think that last spot probably comes down to week 18. And honestly, probably comes down to week 18 where they're both – because I think the Steelers – and the Browns get in because they're already at 7.
Yeah.
And they both have weaker schedules. And they'll be able to, steal a couple more wins, right? Because really get to 9, 10, and then they'll be in. But then the Texans, they have, not Texans, but the Colts and Texans, they'll probably be battling for that last spot. So I could envision a scenario that the Browns come here and they beat the Texans, right? And now like they got that tiebreaker, and now the Texans and the Colts are both battling out for the last spot because the Browns already beat the Colts, right? They beat them in Indianapolis. Granted, it was a little fluky game, but a win's a win.
Yeah, and it could very well come down to a situation where it's going to be Houston and Indy and maybe Buffalo, depending on if they can take care of their business, kind of vying it out for that last playoff spot going into Week 18. In terms of Tennessee, what does the future look like for them in your opinion? Because right now, Will Levis is up and down. Mike Vrabel, like they feel like a team that isn't ever going to fully commit to a rebuild, but they're going to somewhat convince themselves that they're only a piece away when it's evident that there's more that they need to do.
Yeah, I think they got a new gym in there, right? And I think they kind of know it's a rebuild, right? Because
Sure.
they just won't go to like a full. I think it's more like a software. They're just gonna try to build up everything around. I could see it similar to like what the Falcons did. Their reason was different, right? Their reason was because like they had to get off Matt Ryan's contract and Julio Jones' contract. They had to, do X, Y, and Z. But I do think that the Titans, they've already kind of softly launched it because they just traded Kevin Byard. Do we really think they'll bring back Darren Henry? Probably not. Maybe not. I highly doubt it. I think they'll probably try, move in a new direction in that regard. And I think, right now they're set to have a top 10 pick, and it's a interesting quarterback draft class. And as we all know, you keep shooting darts until you find a guy, no matter how you draft them, right? Like the Niners, they had Trey Lance, and they ended up with Brock Purdy, 7th round, and now they're moving forward, right? You had the Eagles, they drafted Jalen Hurts. They had Carson, they spent a boatload of cash, and they ended up moving off of him. And it went with Jalen Hurts. Same with Dak and Tony. Just keep shooting. And I think, in my opinion, they'll probably keep trying to find the successor at the quarterback position, especially now that they're in the AFC South, which now looks like a quarterback division.
Yep.
Yeah, like they're. I think I don't want to say they'll be stupid to keep running with Will Levis because he has talent. But I think he is for sure in an evaluation period. And if they come across a guy that they really like, they'll for sure. I can see them for sure making that move. Because remember, they took Will in the 2nd round, so it wasn't like they liked him enough to even take him in the 1st. Right. They liked him, but they ain't love him clearly. So,
DJ Bien-Aime, what have you got coming on ESPN for the Houston Texans?
I got some stuff on a couple of stories on some defensive players, and I'm doing actually doing a story on Bobby Slow, Texans offensive coordinator, just trying to dive into the mastermind behind CJ Stroud being able to play at such a high level.
Good stuff all around, mate. Well, hey, I appreciate you joining me. Good luck with you and your Houston Texans the rest of the way. Hopefully we can do this again, and we're talking about a playoff game taking place.
Yeah. Just hit me
Texans.
Up.
Absolutely. All right, mate. I appreciate you. Everybody watching, appreciate y'all listening to this podcast. We'll do the best bets stream tomorrow with Ben Heisler, so that'll be a lot of fun. But thanks to y'all for tuning into the Pump Fake. We'll catch you very soon.